Hello, and welcome to Sharing Libraries, an LMxAC podcast. I'm Jonathan Upton, Library Catalog and Digital Content Support Specialist at LMxAC. This episode is part of a series featuring guest topics from across LMxAC. That's the Libraries of Middlesex Automation Consortium for those in the know. In today's episode, we'll be discussing the many adaptations we've all had to go through over the past few years. How have libraries responded to community health emergencies, and are they coming back stronger? My guests for this conversation are Lynnette Fucci, Youth Services Supervisor of the Monroe Township Library, and Kimberly Paone, Director of the Matawan Aberdeen Public Library. Thank you and welcome to both of you.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, Jonathan.
So we've had a few years, basically, I think, as a planet. And, and obviously for us, a lot of that has impacted what we do every day, how we're able to help people, even the kinds of things we buy, when we try and buy them. Everything's been upended. So I guess just to start off, what are some of the ways you've been working with your staff, your patrons, to get through all of this? Are you we're gonna do the game plan and then we'll follow it through, or is it just every day brings something new? What's been your experience?
I think, Jonathan, you said it perfectly. Every day, especially in Monroe, I feel that it's something new comes up. I just want to establish that libraries and librarians in general have stayed super busy and admirably risen to the challenge of the pandemic. We didn't stop. I know librarians and I know how we are. We were open relatively early compared to other libraries in the area, and we weren't super busy, but the patrons we were seeing needed us. I had made vaccine appointments for so many seniors in our town. Our at-home services department made calls to homebound patrons. I think having staff know how important we were and always are was a really good motivation for them in the community.
I think our initial goal that carried through, that was really the only thing that didn't change throughout COVID and even into today, is keeping everyone well informed, making sure that staff knew what was going on, making sure that our patrons knew what was going on, and just being transparent about, we're a small library, so we were one of the last to reopen because it just was not safe to have many people in this building. And we did split shifts so that we were splitting our staff and making sure that they were not too close together in the building, and really focused on safety in every possible way, but letting our patrons know what we were doing and letting the staff know all along the way as we made policy, and that policy changed constantly. So I was trying to be everyone's cheerleader, which is really exhausting. And I think anybody in any level of management felt that exhaustion and still feels that exhaustion. It's not that piece of this is not over yet. So I think that really served us really well. And creating policy with safety in mind at the forefront of everything that we did was very, very important. But also the addition of self-care programming and things like Tai Chi and meditation and yoga for patrons that staff could also participate in was really top of the list. That was a priority for us.
I know that I'm a very techie guy, as people may remember from my job description at the start of this episode. And I know that many of the libraries, though I think every single one of our libraries did close for some period of time, some reopened pretty quickly. I was very impressed by how well thought out and considered everyone's plans were. Again, sometimes they were planned, sometimes they were, okay, let's deal with what's going on. In almost every case, a library's digital footprint, right? Whether that's more frequent Facebook posts, whether that's reactivating an old Twitter account for a considerable period of time. I think it's died down. Libraries are doing story times on YouTube, and worked with publishers to get special dispensation so that the legal issues weren't a problem. Copyright was being restricted, etc. Did your libraries sort of partake in that a lot? Were you finding that a viable alternative way to reach at least a portion of your patrons?
In Monroe, we closed on a Saturday to the public, and Tuesday we had our first virtual music program for kids. We got to know our patrons a little bit better and in a little different way. We usually know their reading habits, what they like to watch, but I met patrons, I met their pets, I met their husbands and their wives and their family. So we had a dog happy hour and come introduce your pets to each other. We had a good time doing those types of programs. We got to know our patrons a little bit better.
Yeah, I think here in Matawan, we seem to have a large clientele of senior citizens. I know Monroe is the same, but that was an area that we really focused on. We did the story times, we did online programming for all ages, but we knew that there was a large percentage of patrons that didn't have accessible means to attend those programs. And the staff and I created a list of patrons that we knew telephone was really the only way to get to them. So that was one of the sort of creative ways that we chose to reach out to that group just to say, hey, how are you? This is what we're doing right now. These are the services we have, but how are you? And we had some amazing conversations with people that some that we got to know a little better. One who liked to tell us about her son delivering wine to her front step, and she had partaken in some of that wine before conversing with us on the telephone. But I think the other thing that we did was everybody's job, right? We all sort of pitched in and did whatever needed doing. We all were doing all the things that we never did before. And circulation was doing ILL, and reference was helping with tech questions that they wouldn't have normally, and everybody was sort of picking up whatever was needed. And I think that that was really something special.
Some I know that several libraries in our consortium offer some form of contactless pickup. And in fact, one library ultimately they decided this is something that we want to take on, but we expect that it's going to continue long past any time we consider this pandemic over, because even if it's not for health emergency reasons, this is an amazing way to offer a service to people. So it's something that we're going to want to offer regardless. So let's get this going as a sort of an ongoing service that we're going to do. So has there been anything you've discovered like, hey, we made this change, or, circumstances dictated that we had to do something differently. Turns out it actually works better this way, or we like it for certain things. Let's keep doing it. Now we've learned it. We wouldn't have done it this way before, but now let's keep that going.
I think two things in particular. One is you mentioned contactless pickup. We have a porch on the side of our building that never was used, and we had no reason for having it. And it had an emergency door, and voila, there it was. And we could put a table, and it's undercover, and that became our porch pickup location. We didn't want staff going out into the parking lot because it's on the back side of the building, and we'd have to send two staff members at a time, and it's far away and the weather could be bad. And so this worked out really, really well. And actually we continued porch pickup. We're still doing it. Our numbers have decreased to a point now where we're going to discontinue it. However, we're going to continue service. So if someone calls and they say, hey, I can't believe you're not doing porch pickup anymore, we'll say, no, call us from the parking lot. And in the time that you come around the side of the building, we will grab your hold and bring it out to your car. So we're still not endangering our staff by making them go to the parking lot, but we are still serving our patrons that may have a disability or even a temporary one. Sometimes somebody's broken their leg or something. So we're still going to be meeting that need, even though it's not exactly in the form that it was during COVID. And then the second one is just maintaining hybrid and online programming. That's going to continue. There are certain programs that really have lent themselves to the online format. We have a book club that's online that's very successful. We have online story time still, and there are other programs that we can now get speakers from anywhere in the world, right, to do programming for us, and that we will continue. So that's something that was not even on our radar screen really before, and now it's an integral part of our programming.
In Monroe, if you're familiar with our library, we have a drive-through window. So we've been kind of doing curbside for a long time here. But when we started doing the curbside process, the book drop for the library is either in the building or at the book drop. So we didn't want to form a line there of traffic. So we actually used the drive-through window just for items being returned, and the patrons had to put them in directly into the book drop. And we worked with Public Works, and they built us 6 signs for the parking spots in the library's parking lot in the front. And they were numbered 1 through 6. And there was a phone number on there, and they would text us and tell us that they were there. But that was great for July, August, September, and even parts of October. But then it started getting dark out, it got cold, so we brought back our curbside to the drive-through window. We actually opened up to the public that summer. Everything becomes a blur at this time, the timeline of COVID. So we were open, but people, especially the seniors, we have a large senior population, like Kimberly said, they were utilizing the drive-through window anyway. And like Kimberly said, we still have hybrid options for most of our programs here. And we have a big senior population who travel to Florida for the winters, and they're still able to participate in these programs when they go to Florida for the season. So it's really nice to keep up that relationship with them.
Awesome. Yeah. Sorry, just the image that popped into my head when you mentioned like the numbered spaces, so like car hops, going out, going out.
Well, that's what it was.
Roller
Uh,
skates.
We were required to wear these yellow vests so people could see us. And in the height of the summer in August, people were sweating so bad, and we didn't have to wear them afterwards.
Yeah, hey, it brings a little fun, a little joy into people's lives. I mean, you're saying, it's all a blur. Like, I consider it like a year and a half, 2 years of just lost time. It's like everything we're doing is potentially very different. Who we're serving is potentially different. Knowing what I need to do for myself, for my family to stay safe is a lot. Like, what were some of like the biggest challenges you had just keeping yourselves, your staff, your patrons safe and healthy? Because there was a lot to deal with over that time. How did you sort of approach that?
We laugh about this because most of us, when we reopened to the public, thought we were going to get sick from a patron. And we put in all of these. We had plexiglass at every service desk. We were using gloves, masks, and no one ever got sick from a patron. We actually got sick from each other. So that's the thing, is that we spend so much time with each other in the library. It's each other. It's your fellow staff members were the ones that we were getting sick from. So we had to start separating ourselves from the kitchen, and we had to eat in different places. So that was a little bit of a learning curve because we thought the public was going to be, because there was more of them, but it wasn't really about seeing more patrons. It was the amount of time we were spending with each other.
Yeah. When you said taking care of our families and our staff and, work and all of that, I think that really resonated with me because my son was at school, at home. So I worked from home in the mornings at the same dining room table where he was having class, which was already a day. And then I would get in the car and go to work for the afternoon shift. And it was very exhausting. And I felt like I had 27 staff members' livelihood and health on my shoulders, and that really is wearing on a person. And I think that looking back, it was definitely the most stressful 2 years of my entire life. And I think that we pulled through it. And I know that it was a credit to the staff and the board who was supportive of all of these constant changes in policy and changes in procedure. And they trusted me, and the staff and I worked very, very hard to make it work. And our patrons certainly appreciated it, but don't want that time back ever, ever, ever. It was tough. It was really tough. And I don't think that people are really recovered yet. So I'm trying to give myself more kindness and trying to give my staff as much kindness as possible. We're still working with the public, and the public hasn't recovered. So we're dealing with people who are paying more at the gas pump and paying more for everything and maybe not very happy with life right now. So that's an extra layer of crazy that we're all dealing with.
I will say one of my favorite times in working in a library was that December of the pandemic, our first winter. We were on teams in the library, and half the staff came in one week and the other staff came in the other week. We had such a great time together. We got to know each other better. We were cross training each other in other departments. We were doing new jobs. I think the staff morale was so high then. And I also think it had to do with, we didn't know this would be a 3-year problem we would still be in right now. So I think we were looking at it with bright eyes, that this would be done. We'd have a vaccine, we'd feel better, but it didn't happen that way.
Right. Right. I think we definitely have a new appreciation for each other, and that is sort of invaluable. Just having to step into other people's shoes. Only half the staff was here at any given time, like you said. So we were doing all the things, and you have a little more respect for some of the people that maybe you didn't understand their job before, maybe you didn't have any idea what they did necessarily. And then when you have to go into that role and perform, it gives you a new level of respect for that person. So that was a positive for sure.
So is there something you think after all of this you've learned about either yourself or about a coworker? You think, oh, I've learned more about your job or the things that you do because, we're being cross-trained. So I understand a lot more of how the systems work, but obviously you've hopefully had plenty of time for, among other things, reflection. For instance, learned that even though I thought, oh, I definitely want to work from home as much as possible, just be at home and I'll get work done and it'll be great and be quiet and that I'll be super productive. And that did not happen. I got home and it was super quiet and I liked it. And I was not at all as productive as I thought. I wasn't terrible, but I'm an introvert who benefits from being in a social situation and gets work done better. So, I learned, okay, maybe work from home is not ideal for me, but we'll see.
I was always on edge when I was working from home that something was going to come up and my phone wouldn't work. I wouldn't have Wi-Fi and I wouldn't have been available. I was always on edge during the day. And I think when I was working from home, my hours of working was very different. I would be doing work at 3 a.m., but then I would take a nap at 1 p.m. And this is the beginning of the pandemic when we thought we'd have 2 weeks home. So it was very interesting to learn that working from home is not as fun as it sounds, like you said.
Yeah. I think I've learned to be kinder to myself in many ways. During the first year of the pandemic, I lost 16 days of vacation time. I just didn't take it. And I'm mad at myself that I didn't, but I've learned to take the time that is owed to me and including comp time, including not cheating myself and really taking care of myself is helping me to take care of others. So my staff has always been fantastic, but they prove to me how absolutely versatile they are and how strong they are. And I was already impressed by them, but now I have a new layer of just respect and I'm really proud of them having come through all of this.
When we reopened, a patron came up to me and she said, "This means a lot. I missed the library more than I missed my nail salon being open." And I was like, "I get that. And thank you. You just learned what was important in your life and what you wanted to keep around and what you were looking forward to do." So that was one of my favorite quotes from a patron.
So, final question, trying to end on hopefully a positive, optimistic note. Is there something that you think is, whether it's in your library, in your life, whatever, that you think is better now than it was before the pandemic?
I have something. We're having a staff day. That staff day is structured very differently than pre-pandemic staff days. There's more break time. There's more thought about the care of the staff. We're bringing in someone to do meditation to open our day. There's more time for breakfast. We're still going to do the things that we do on staff day. There will still be department meetings and department reports, and we're going to learn, but we're going to take it a lot slower. And I think that the staff deserves that. And it's something that has changed because of what has gone on the last 2 years.
I think staff is a lot more appreciative of each other, and we're not so quick to be dismissive or get angry at things. The pandemic taught us to just take a step back and look at things in perspective. If someone's ILL isn't here on time, it's not life or death.
Yeah, that's actually exactly what I was thinking of. Basically, the increased focus on self-care is definitely one positive thing to come out of all of this. Any other particular things burning a hole in your brains? You want to focus on the pandemic even more. Now is your chance to really dig in deep and get to the marrow of. Yeah, no, I didn't.
No, I think this podcast will
Yeah.
mark the end of trying to think about this.
I think you both appreciate you being here, appreciating your words.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Thank you.
To listen to other episodes in this series or additional podcast series, you can visit ebpl.org library.org/podcasts. Thank you very much. See you next time.